Why do women use fabric to create their art? Fabric is intimate. When women use it as art, they are turning the personal into the universal. Fabric is familiar. It's been in their hands since childhood. It's a language they already know. And historically, women made art with what was available. In doing so, they transformed a domestic duty into a powerful form of expression. Fabric art lets women write their stories, layer by layer, stitch by stitch, without needing permission. And today, they choose fabric because it carries their voice in a way no other medium can. For generations, they've stitched by hand and machine, not just out of tradition, but as a way to make meaning. Here is the story of a woman who turned thread and fabric into voice and found along the way that her art could also build a life.
My name is Miriam Nathan Roberts, and I was born in Dayton, Ohio, and grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I consider myself a Pittsburgher. Pittsburgh is a city of many bridges because it has 3 rivers. My father was a frustrated engineer, so he would always point out the differences in the structures to me. And the structures have been very important. When I first started the interweave in the beginning of 1983, I thought of it as steel, liquid steel being woven. I was drawn to art quilting in the first place because it was so new, there were no traditions in it. And I have always been a nonconformist. So having no rules meant that I could explore any direction I wanted to. My mother came from Russia when she was 13. Both my parents taught. My mother could not even do a hem. We would go to a dressmaker to fix the hem. I became interested in sewing in the 7th grade when I took the sewing class, and had to make the apron with the 1/8-inch gingham. I got a D, but I was hooked on fabric. And from age 12 on, fabric has been my major means of expression. I also was interested in art and decided at a 3rd grade that I wanted to be an artist. My teachers didn't feel the same way. I saw double. I would have been a special ed student if they'd had it in those days. They wanted to put me in a class for slow learners because I saw double. So I would understand how to do math, but the answer was always wrong. And reading was difficult because I couldn't track from one line to the next. So in elementary school, I had a great deal of difficulty until my parents found an optometrist who did eye muscle exercises. But I learned to read and do everything I needed to do. I sold fabric during the summer in Pittsburgh because I loved fabric. That has been a given since I was introduced to it. And my parents did notice how drawn I was, and they bought me a sewing machine and encouraged my sewing. So I really became focused on fabric as a passion at age 12. I went away to school at Cornell and then to the University of Edinburgh for the summer to study 18th century British literature because I'm a big fan of Jane Austen. Got my master's at UC Berkeley, and I came for 1 year in 1964. Very prim and proper from Cornell and then Edinburgh with Peter Pan collars, circle pin. And 3 weeks later, the free speech movement happened here. And I changed completely from a person of the 50s to a person of the 60s. I embraced the 60s thoroughly because I was in such a hotbed. It was the perfect place to be. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted to be a clothing designer. When I started student teaching, I was sure that teaching was the one thing I knew I didn't want to do because both my parents taught. So I knew that was not for me. I started teaching at Berkeley High, and I loved it. The last thing I expected. I have taught art, and then I was offered a job in special ed and loved it. I designed dresses and then became involved in needlepoint. And I am obsessive. I don't do things in moderation. So when I became involved with needlepoint, I started working in a needlepoint store. I eventually managed one in Beverly Hills and had a wonderful time in the early 70s. I just am not good with moderation. I could do quilting and make it my business. I did that with needlepoint, and needlepoint lost a lot of its fun for me. And how many needlepoint things can you have? So I didn't want to do that with quilting. So I viewed the teaching as my trust fund. I just happened to go out every day and have to earn the trust fund, but it was doing something I enjoyed. So I thought that was the best of both worlds, not needing to make the money from the quilting. Making it from the teaching meant that the quilting could remain my passion, and I'm not very good at being one of the crowd in that from the beginning I knew I wanted to make art quilts, and this was early 70s when it was just starting. And I pursued that in a way that was not moderate. I really threw myself into it. And so much so that my husband and I were on a CBS special about women because I didn't want to have children. He did. But I thought, Virginia Woolf in a room of her own, if I had a child, I couldn't be an artist. And that was very important to me. So we worked several years together to figure out a way, and then I did have my son, and it was the best thing I ever did. Most of my quilts, when you put them all together in a one-woman show, you can see that there's something there that connects them all. The palette, the feel. I like to be able to follow whatever idea I have. So often you would not recognize one of my quilts unless you see them all together because I have so many different styles. But that was why I loved teaching. I didn't have to depend on pleasing anyone. A lot of that has to do with growing up seeing double because my eyes didn't have fusion, which also meant I had no depth perception. So illusions of depth are how I don't walk into coffee tables or how I can drive, not actual depth perception, because I see out of one eye at a time. I was a charter member of EBHQ in Berkeley, East Bay Heritage Quilters. We started as a group of students of Glendora Hudson and Roberta Horton, and we were putting on a benefit quilt show for a children's hospital. And of course it's grown to 600 members. I would not have developed as a quilt maker and artist without East Bay Heritage Quilters because they hire well-known artists who came in to teach. And I then became exposed to a lot of the people that are very famous. Having exposure, I was working. I couldn't go traveling every place to take classes. Having them come to us because of East Bay Heritage Quilters and the workshops I took, I was able to develop in my own way. And I don't think that would have happened at all without East Bay Heritage Quilters. I don't mean to sound corny, but I do realize that there's a sisterhood with past and present quilters. I think of the history of women and the women who have, in very tough times, made beautiful quilts as their way of expressing themselves. And quilting is very much the way I express myself. So as a result, I always think of the history of women and the future of women who are as yet unborn taking to quilting. It's not all women, of course, but I think of the sisterhood a lot. And I'm not usually a corny person. We all build upon what other people have done before us. What we're doing now are the building blocks for future quilters. Every new technique, every new idea broadens the horizon. And that's one of the reasons I love to teach workshops, especially the design workshops are my favorite to teach because it does broaden people's horizons. And I feel like I've made a difference. The interweave quilt that I designed and did a series of is very much an optical illusion of depth created by value. And often when I teach in quilt making, I try to emphasize the importance of value. That's how we read black and white photographs. It's not the color. Judy Warren Bladen, who first used the phrase, value does the work and color gets the credit. And I use that phrase whenever I teach. We do respond emotionally to color, but the actual visual impact is by value shift. So I've found that very important. I do a lot of different kinds of crafts or art. I do some drawing, very little. Do some painting, very little lately. But I had a back surgery and couldn't work on quilt making, but I need to work to live. I can't not be doing some creative work. So I started painting clear glass plates from the back and have a whole setup for doing plate painting, which I love to do. And I try to do things that I've never seen before. I have a fear of the blank wall. I never know whether the next thing I choose to work on, just an arbitrary decision. How do I know it's worth working on? If I have something started, I'm happy as a clam, because then once there's something started, I can start having a dialogue with it. What does it need next? What's working and what's not working? But when the wall's empty, where do you start? The printmaking is wonderful because with quilt making and most other media, you make that decision and the other possibilities are no longer available. In digital imaging, you can save each of those crossroads and try several ways of doing things. Then, of course, you just confuse yourself with having that many more options. But I do a lot of printmaking and have been showing digital fine art prints for the last few years and actually selling quite a few prints. My love is still textiles, and that's why I'm trying to marry the textiles with the digital printmaking. So a lot of the work I'm doing now involves printing on textiles with a wide format printer. I was drawn to digital imaging for the very same reasons. I love doing fine art digital prints because it is the beginning of that technology, and have tried to marry the two. So I decided to take a class in Photoshop, which I did in the days of Photoshop 3. I was so afraid of computers when they first started that during the summer, teachers had to take the computers home so they wouldn't get stolen. And I thought, perfect time for me to learn to deal with a computer. It was an Apple IIe in that time. I took some classes and learned to take the computer apart, put it back together, and do some troubleshooting. I saw Mac Paint and I loved it. Now, I'm very lucky in that the community college in Berkeley is one of the ones in California specializing in multimedia arts. So I still have the same teacher, who's Joe Doyle, who's wonderful. And the community college in Berkeley has a lot of printers. It is very well equipped because it specializes in digital art. It's the perfect place. And the community that even some of the people were taking Photoshop with me all those years ago are still in the class. We keep going further, and since the emphasis is on art, we're trying to push the medium because there aren't traditions in digital art at this point. So everyone's take on it is very different. And I love the community college system because you make friends there that are from every part of life. And it's people I would never have met any other way, and I enjoy it tremendously. And there's a great spirit of fellowship. The only person that can make your art is you. It's just putting its first line down. And if you don't do it, you are not giving back to the world. You're not having something to leave to the world. I think that the qualities that have made me go as far as I have are the qualities that I like to finish things. In my classes, I teach a lot of very talented people. Much more naturally talented. I was not one of those people that could draw the horse in grade school. I had to work at it. And I see people that are naturally talented, but don't finish. And that they can't show their work when they don't finish. I just, I'd love to see if the colors are coming out at all like I expected them. The elephant in the room is that I am in recovery from cancer and am still in the process of treatment. I have lymphoma, and the diagnosis came as quite a surprise. It has been difficult, but I found the weekend before I was to start chemotherapy, I was to start on actually start during the week, and I postponed it to start on a Monday after I taught at a quilt conference because I needed to be with my people, to get the support of other women, and to remind me that my life isn't cancer. My life is still my life, and I have to live it. I don't have to become mostly a cancer patient, even though it takes up phenomenal amounts of time. Life is still going, and I have to make sure that I remain me and kept the things that are important to me, like quilt making. So it's been important for me to go to that quilt conference and teach and be with wonderful supportive women. I lectured at the San Francisco Guild, have gone on their quilt away, and each time it has given me more energy rather than less. It's very supportive. The group of people who are drawn to quilting seem to be just lovely, warm people, very supportive. I know that I don't have any choices here. I can either let it consume my life, or I can wring everything from my life that I can. There's an old Jewish proverb about one of the famous rabbis telling one of his congregants that he had to live, on the last day of his life, he had to live in the best possible way, to do things that he would be proud of, that he enjoyed. And the congregant said, "But how do you know it's the last day of your life?" He said, "That's it. You do it every day."